Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Let us take a look at all of the work finishing in August and September, according to the progress tracker. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for the support. It is truly appreciated. So recently, we saw a great amount of new features get added to the progress tracker, most of which are planned to release in Alpha 4.0, some of which are more for 1.0, and then some others we will be receiving in 3.24.2, and any other updates that come along. So today I will be running through each feature that has work ending in August or September, according to the progress tracker, just shedding some more light into what each feature is. But as always, just because a feature on the progress tracker has work beginning or completing in a particular month does not necessarily mean that it will release that quarter, the next quarter, or even in that year, as there could still be more work required from other teams like the downstream teams. It is, however, a great guide to see what could potentially come to the persistent universe when, but at the very least, it shows us what work is being done at what time in the year. Now, kicking off with one that we have heard about recently, and that is the contested zones, which were presented on an Inside Star Citizen. And these, I'm not too fussed about. For Arena Commander, they would be kinda cool, but for the PU, I think I will just avoid them for the most part, especially when the death of a spaceman mechanic starts becoming more of a thing. But these are essentially loot extraction shooters where you will be entering into a dangerous sort of free-for-all section of a space station in Pyro, fighting other players and NPCs for a chance to escape with some really good loot. Now, I am very interested to see how they play, but as I say, it's not something that I'll be dabbling in too much. But this had 14 weeks work that should have come to an end right about now, and will be present in Alpha 4.0. Now, the next feature, being Charge and Drain, this had 183 weeks work that will be completing at the end of August, and as we've recently heard, will add the ability for players to drain, store and charge objects with power using the multi-tool, but also be applicable to anything with a battery. Now, this also says it will bring the ability to overcharge objects and also remove distortion damage as well, so it's going to be a big part of combat and engineering, but it does sound like there is a lot to this feature, and it's not just applying to restarting an item found around a planetside location for these repair missions, but as I say, aiding in engineering in a big way, and I can see this having a lot more applications than what we already know later down the line as they start to expand on it and bring in new systems. Now, talking of engineering, that is the next feature on this list, which doesn't really need an explanation, as I'm sure you're all pretty much aware of what this is referring to, being the resource network and the management and maintenance of all of our ship items like weapons, components, ensuring that they all run as smoothly as possible. And although for 4.0 this is just going to be applicable to ships, eventually it will apply to space stations and planetside locations, all needing this resource network with varying components. Now, this particular deliverable kicked off at the beginning of the year for the core gameplay pillar, which is probably why it's only showing 33 weeks, because it's a new team as such, as this has been in the works from other teams for such a long time. Personally, this is one thing that I am extremely excited to see release in Alpha 4.0, as it will give so much more need and want to customize our ship and manage all the systems on board as well, plus it is the first real step into multi-crew. Now, I will be doing a video dedicated to engineering soon, especially now that we've had the sort of final look at it on Inside Star Citizen before it releases in 4.0, but it is a major system that, from what I can see, looks very exciting. Now, next up we have the fire extinguisher, which, as you can imagine, is required for tackling any fires that break out in your ship. And for the first iteration, there will just be fires available inside ships, so they'll only break out in ships, they won't break out in the environment and so forth. Eventually they will propagate in any environment, as long as the requirements are met, be that a space station or planetside. But the fire extinguisher attaches and recharges in their holders, which we can see dotted around our ships, and they do look like they're going to be very satisfying to use. Now, the extinguishers will be coming alongside the fire hazard system for Alpha 4.0 whenever that releases, and will be something that we will need to ensure that we have fully charged, just in case of a fire. Now, next, we have the FOBs, or Forward Operating Bases, and these are actually in-game already as points of interest that you can travel to. I think there are 43 of them right now, but they currently hold no gameplay whatsoever. Eventually, they will be hooked into the various mission systems, and I suppose the dynamic mission system as well, to offer all manner of gameplay opportunities and points of interest to travel to. But what is nice is how they all look slightly different to one another. Some of them do look very different to one another, others are quite similar, but externally they have various things around them like landing pads and gas tanks, but they will eventually also have internal space, as some of them have buildings that will be able to be ventured into. Now, these locations had 12 weeks work and as mentioned are in-game now, but there is just no reason to really go there. So once it's hooked into a system like the dynamic mission system, it'll be great to see how these evolve and what their purposes will be on an individual level. Now next up we have item overheat, and this will allow items and weapons to overheat, causing damage and requiring the player to contend with malfunctions. Now this will be applicable to both ship and FPS weapons, components and tools, and will be an additional aspect to manage and plan accordingly for, and of course on board ships can be a reason for fires to outbreak. But what I like about this overheat system is that it will make sense to the environment as well. So if you take a weapon, like an energy weapon, to a hot planet, the chances of it overheating are far greater than using that same weapon on a planet like Microtech. Meaning when you are taking on a mission, seeing where you're going and then grabbing the appropriate gear according to that location is going to be something that we need to consider. Now, item overheat had 18 weeks work that ended just at the end of August, and as we haven't seen it in-game yet, there is a good chance it'll come with 3.24.2, but most likely it'll be coming with Alpha 4.0. Now, the next feature, being life support, is another deliverable that we have heard quite a bit about recently and will be of great importance for all of our ships and eventually other locations as well. Now, the life support system will require players to maintain the oxygen on board their ship, the atmosphere on board as well, ensuring that things are optimal for you and your crew, and it will allow for a lot of interactions and input from players, and can even lead to something like sabotage if left unchecked. Now, this will have a big impact on all of us, as we will need to get into the habit of not just opening doors and airlocks and cargo bays without thinking about the potential consequences, like venting the atmosphere out of a ship and getting sucked out. We will be able to use it to help put out fires or repel boarders, but this will certainly take some time to get used to, and I'm sure we will all wind up killing ourselves, many of our crewmates accidentally, until we get into the habit of it. And as we know, the life support system will release with the engineering system in Alpha 4.0, and I am so excited to see how this will change how we play. Now, the next feature, which we know is now coming in the next patch, being Alpha 3.24.2, and has been in need of an update for so long, and this is the MFD rework. Now, we have seen a lot of changes recently on Inside Star Citizen. They look great, and although not all manufacturer styles are getting updated with this initial rollout, all ships will still receive a new style. So the new manufacturer-specific MFDs include Drake, Aegis, Argo, and Anvil, but they do have a sort of generic updated style MFD that will be applied to all the other manufacturers until they get around to designing them at a later date. And these new MFDs will not just be more useful and increase the MFD's usability and functions, like exposing many game settings options on the MFDs and not having to go to the pause menu, but they will also be a very refreshing change. Now, next we have a series of new mission types coming in Alpha 4.0, being Repair, Charge, and Drain. Now, we heard about these on Inside Star Citizen quite recently, and they offer new non-combat opportunities for players around settlements and other locations in Pyro initially, and then they will expand to other locations post 4.0. Now, this includes missions that task players with replacing broken relay nodes or carrying a charge from one device to another device using the multi-tool, plus repairing broken pipes using RMC. And although there will be only a limited amount of missions using this system, the scope is pretty big for other opportunities later on, especially when we have physical damage, base building, and the resource network. Like having missions requiring players to repair or replace components, maybe fixing or rebuilding things that have been blown up or broken down. This mission type can expand on a massive scale. Plus, when it's hooked into the dynamic mission system, hopefully it will be in that system for 4.0, we don't know yet, but it could offer a lot of choice on where and what you want to do that doesn't necessarily involve combat. Of course, combat can break out at any point in most areas of the game, but this will allow for some really interesting gameplay planetside, keeping players entertained for a while without feeling the need to constantly fly all over the place. And for me, as a kind of off-gridder style player, I really look forward to being able to sink my teeth into a location and just get into fixing things up, problem solving, and saying hello to people as they come and go. Now, the next feature is called Acidic Caves, and this is a new cave archetype for both Pyro and Stanton, although we do know it is coming with Alpha 324.2, but it says that they are adorned with luminous pools of water and dramatic stalactites and stalagmites, and will provide a captivating setting for exploration, FPS missions, missing person missions, and more. Now, as we know, they will also offer mining opportunities as well, just like the rocky and sandy caves that have come before them, plus provide a home to various creatures, which will likely expand to some other types beyond the Copians. And actually, talking of rocky and sandy caves, each of these cave types are also going to have a bit of work going on, with rocky caves slated to release in Alpha 4.0, plus sandy caves, which were originally released in Alpha 3.18, sound like they're getting updated for 3.24.2 as well, likely using what they have learned from building out the acidic caves. So taking the lessons of what they have learned from all the previous caves and the new caves, and then continuing to update each archetype as they go. And hopefully from 4.0 onwards, caves can see more gameplay tied to them, with more cave archetypes to come later on as well, like icy caves and so forth. But all three cave archetypes had about 8 weeks work that started right at the end of July, and these acidic caves will complete around mid to late September. But talking of sandy caves, as mentioned, they were released in Alpha 3.18, but they will have learned a great deal and improved the tech as well, so applying these to the sandy caves. And I'm not exactly sure what the update will bring to the sandy caves. I do hope that it will include entrances to allow ships and vehicles to enter, like we see with the kind of original rocky caves, but other than that, I'm not too sure. I do wonder as well how many caves there will be implemented with this new update, as when they released the sandy caves, I think they dropped about 170 of them throughout the various planets and moons of Stanton. Magda alone, I believe, has about 60 odd caves, and when I was flying around in the Pyro playground, every time I used my ship scanner and pinged, I found a cave. They were everywhere. So I think they're trying to spread them around even more than we have seen before. And that could be part of the whole update as well as optimizations, just to help spread many more caves around. But either way, they will be able to use these caves for so many different mission types. And of course, as I say, the creatures, different animals living in different environments. Acidic caves offering an environment different to those that the Copians need to live in. Plenty of scope, plenty of options, and it should be quite scary as well. Now, the final feature we have are the Asteroid facilities, and I won't go too much into these because we have only just recently learned about them, but they are structures built into large asteroids found around the Pyro system, and they will offer locations for different types of gameplay in both its exterior and interior. Now, I am really excited to see how these feel, as they will eventually be able to provide a bit of kind of Dead Space or Alien Isolation gameplay to them. Again, the scope and the potential here is quite huge. Maybe not initially when they roll out for the first time, but as a point of interest for some really scary exploration gameplay, I'm really excited to see them. So that was all of the work that came to a close in the months of August and September this year, according to the progress tracker. Some great new features on the way, some coming in the next patch being 3.24.2, with others coming in Alpha 4.0. But with that said, I will now get on to covering the features that came to a close in October, or planning for that because we're not even in October yet. But if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing. We are fast approaching 70,000 subscribers, so thank you so much for the support. Come and hang out over at twitch.tv/SuperMacBrother. You are all more than welcome over there. We're just playing a bit of 3.24.1, living off grid, seeing what we can find organically while filling up my hangar as well with some goodies. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you'd like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.